these regulations are based not just on the false premise that they are a requirement of international law, but also represent a grievous breach of the devolved settlement. For these reasons, and because I believe they do not reflect the will of the people of Northern Ireland, I cannot support these regulations. We are told the regulations are being introduced to satisfy the requirements of Section 9 of the Northern Ireland Executive Formation Act 2019. But to really understand the constitutional problem that is Section 9, it is necessary to appreciate that the case for the vote on the 9th of July 2019 was greatly strengthened by a claim which it is now clear was not true. In urging the House to vote for the amendment that became Section 9, its proponents suggested it was required because we in Northern Ireland were in violation of our international human rights obligations. This was completely inaccurate. The CEDAW Convention, which is international law and is supposed to define the terms of reference of the CEDAW Committee, does not even mention abortion, let alone define a right to it. Moreover, the CEDAW Committee is not a judicial body and does not have standing to read in a right to abortion as demonstrated by Professor Mark Hill, QC. Moreover, while the government was deafeningly silent on this point when it mattered during the debate on the 9th of July 2019, the explanatory notes on these regulations belatedly recognise that paragraphs 85 and 86 do not constitute international obligations, the very term that was used to describe them in July 2019. The notes state, and I quote, "The Section 26 Northern Ireland Act power can be relied on by the Secretary of State to ensure that the recommendations in paragraph 85 and 86 of the CEDAW report are implemented. In particular, those recommendations are not binding and do not constitute international obligations." It can't be any plainer. So despite what has previously been claimed, it is clear that these regulations are not a requirement of international law. The suggestion that the government is compelled to act as a matter of domestic law is equally dubious. What exactly is required by virtue of Section 9 is a matter of debate. That the government has an overwhelming majority in the House of Commons is not. They suggest Parliament gives him no choice in the matter, as though Parliament cannot change an Act of Parliament it introduced when there was no Assembly, now that the Northern Ireland Assembly has returned, and I strongly disagree. In order to consider the proper responsibility of the government as custodians of the Union in relation to Northern Ireland, one must first remember that the legitimacy of Section 9 and the regulation-making powers rest on a vote on the 9th of July 2019, on what was not just Northern Ireland-only legislation, but legislation on a devolved matter, in relation to which 100% of the Northern Ireland MPs who took their seats voted no. Notwithstanding that, however, the radical and deeply controversial legislation change proposed in what became Section 9 was imposed on Northern Ireland by the vote of MPs from the rest of the United Kingdom, none of whom had a mandate to represent Northern Ireland on this very issue. Mr Chairman, I do not question the fact that Parliament is legally entitled to legislate for Northern Ireland, notwithstanding the fact that certain powers are devolved to the Assembly. But I do question the wisdom of it and the enduring damage it will do to the devolved settlement. It opened up the door to a regulation-making power, and in principle there is no limit to the number of times the Secretary of State could try and make Section 9 regulations. We had one set last year, and now we have another set this year. All this, though the Minister for Health in Northern Ireland has stated that there is no legal duty under the present regulations for his department to commission abortion services. Each time new Section 9 regulations are introduced, they reopen the constitutional sore upon which they rest. Each time, with devolution restored, these powers are used, the government sends out a message that the Northern Ireland Assembly and our present constitutional arrangements are not fit for purpose. Does the government have no idea how dangerous, how damaging such a message is in the present circumstances? It is also more serious in the sense that it jeopardises an important distinctive of the part of the Union that is Northern Ireland. The fact that we developed over a period of more than 50 years our own approach to valuing the unborn, choosing life and having distinctive life-affirming laws. The Both Lives Matter's 100,000 report, using robust statistical methods, has established that over 100,000 people were alive in Northern Ireland in 2017 who would not have been had the 1967 Act been embraced by the province. Some people took exception to this and complained to the Advertising Standards Authority, but after a 5-month investigation involving leading statisticians, the Advertising Standards Authority rejected the complaint, concluding that 100,000 was indeed a reasonable claim. This is in stark contrast to the 9 million aborted here in GB. One baby every 3 minutes. So by the time I have finished my speech, another 3 lives have been lost or ended. This may not matter very much to some in England, Scotland or Wales, but it matters very deeply to many people in Northern Ireland, touching on, as it does, a core Northern Ireland distinctive of choosing life. In reflecting on this, it is vital to remember that the United Kingdom is a union, a relationship of component parts that are not all the same in every respect. In coming together, we are more than the sum of our parts. Our union is no more uniform than it's unitary. This means that there is one reason, and one reason only, why Northern Ireland has been overruled. It is not because of any international human rights imperative. It is because a majority of members of Parliament from Great Britain chose to impose this on Northern Ireland against the wishes of its people and their representatives.
Would you give way on that point?
I will give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable member for giving way, and I understand the conundrum that she's in. But when she says the regulations don't reflect the resolved position of Northern Ireland, surely the reason we're here today is precisely because there isn't a resolved political position of the representatives of the people in the Northern Ireland Assembly, but that the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland actually want to have the same regulations and rules on abortion that we have in the rest of the United Kingdom and in the rest of the island of Ireland as well.
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, and he will know that I will disagree with his assessment, and being as someone who has her roots firmly in Northern Ireland, I can say that Northern Ireland, well, living in Northern Ireland and representing a large constituency in Northern Ireland, I certainly know that the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland want laws that choose life. They want life-affirming laws, and they want the laws that have been to continue. And that's why, like the previous speaker, I will be calling on the government to repeal Section 9.
The Honourable Lady give way.
I will give way.
Thank the Honourable Lady, and she's doing a very good job of putting forward her case, but I note that she doesn't refer back to the ruling of the UK Supreme Court and the majority view of the UK Supreme Court, who found that it was entirely likely that the position in Northern Ireland would be out of kilter with human rights law. Surely at that point she would see that there was a need to act.
I thank my honourable friend for making that point, and it actually gives me the opportunity to say that had that ruling been binding, which it was not, as you will be aware, it actually would have only changed Northern Ireland's abortion laws in a very, very minor way around fetal abnormality. So therefore, you know, to weigh that up against the laws that this government is forcing on the people of Northern Ireland, which are so far-reaching, in fact amongst the most liberal in all of Europe, it doesn't even weigh up. I will give way and then I'll make progress.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and it is a very emotive subject, as a lot of people have said. Does she accept that once these regulations have been put into force, that because abortion is devolved in Northern Ireland and the Assembly is sitting, that these regulations can be amended, as the Minister said in his opening statement?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. For the UK government, this undermines a devolution settlement for the UK government to continue to railroad through abortion legislation that is not wanted by the people and the legislators within Northern Ireland and the people who are elected to take decisions on this matter. So therefore, there may well be an opportunity, and I trust there will be an opportunity to amend it and repeal it. This undermines the Union, and it undermines Northern Ireland's place within the Union. I'm sorry, I really do want to make some progress. So back to my point around the only reason that Northern Ireland has been overruled is not because of a human rights imperative. It's because the majority of members of Parliament have decided to overrule the wishes of the people and representatives in Northern Ireland. In this context, Mr. Chairman, the government has to confront another dimension of the sovereignty of Parliament, the fact that no Parliament can bind its successors. Most GB MPs who were persuaded to vote for Section 9 thought that they were voting for something for the time when there was no functioning Assembly. As custodians of the Union, rather than welcoming the restoration of Stormont by imposing more regulations on us through a power that lies on what can only be described as a humiliating majority, the government should read the introduction of the Act in which Section 9 is located, which states that it brings certain changes, quote, subject to the formation of the Executive. Now that the Executive has been reformed and the time frame of the Act has passed, rather than saying there is nothing we can do apart from introducing new regulations, the government should do the responsible, union-affirming thing, which is to recognise that times have changed, Stormont has been restored, and the Parliament that voted for Section 9 no longer exists. In this context, the thing that is incumbent on the Secretary of State is not to place the Union under the intolerable pressure of yet more regulations resting on the anti-Northern Ireland majority of the 9th of July 2019, but to ask this new Parliament to repeal Section 9.
I'm grateful, and I have listened to her talk a great deal about this undermining the Union. How does she feel that 1,000 women a year seeking refuge in Britain strengthens the Union? We were proud to support those women in their hour of need, but surely it is time for Northern Ireland to take its responsibilities as a mature society and support its own people.
Before we move on, can I just remind all members, unless there's a reason not to, please to wear masks when they're not speaking. Carla Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank my friend for that intervention. I'm actually trying to recall the intervention with the masks. No, the people of Northern Ireland, the 1,000 women, I do hear much of the women, and I want to empathise with those women, and I want pathways for those women to actually choose life. We need services in Northern Ireland that actually put their arms around those women and say, do you know what, there are other options. The option is to choose life. So I want to see pathways, I want to see investment into the family unit, into women choosing life. And I hear much of the women, and I empathise fully with them, but yet I hear so little about the unborn. I hear so little about the baby that's being aborted, and unfortunately they don't have a voice. So I feel I have to have a voice for those little babies that are going to be aborted and life ended so brutally in the womb. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I would call on all members who believe in the Union and recognise the huge damage resulting from repeatedly using a regulation-making power designed for a time when Stormont was suspended, when it is now fully functional, and whose mandate rests upon a vote that, rather than expressing the reality of our Union, manifest instead the humiliation of Northern Ireland. to vote against these regulations, press the government to propose the repeal of Section 9 and leave this issue with democratically elected politicians in Northern Ireland. Mr. Chairman, we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, and all very unique individuals. As I left for London this morning, I left my 2-year-old little boy, Charlie, and you know, I walked away from him with a really broken heart. I walked away thinking of the thousands, millions of babies that have already had their lives ended, and potentially with this law, the lives that will be ended in Northern Ireland. And I would just impress upon people today to vote against these regulations, allow Northern Ireland and our legislators to decide on this issue. But I want to assure everyone the battle has not ended, and you will not have heard the last of me and many in this Parliament. We will continue to be a voice for the voiceless and to stand up for both lives in every pregnancy.